1. Picked up a to-go shift tonight at the restaurant I work at, and one of my first customers set the mood for the night. We have an awful $3 for $10 meal that attracts the worst people. She was one of them. She walks in to order and has absolutely no clue what she wants, except that it will be on the $3 for $10. I'm used to this and don't usually mind, so I remained really friendly while basically being a menu audiobook, and even gave suggestions on what is popular and what I think is good, as well as making polite conversation with her as I took the order. I'm waiting for her food to come up, and she asks me if the bacon burger she ordered comes with a burger patty, or just bacon as the only meat. I'm a bit confused because it seems ridiculous that this is even a question, but to clarify her that it includes a burger patty. She then asks for my name, which almost always means a customer wants to complain at our restaurant. Her food comes out and I bag it up and fix her drink, placing both on the counter as I let her know her food is up. I'm ridiculously busy, so I immediately go to the line to work on other orders, not noticing that she left her drink despite it being placed directly next to her bag, and me letting her know it was her drink. About 5 minutes later, she walks in and asks if the drink on the counter is hers. I let her know it is and apologize for not noticing she left her drink, as I was working on other orders. She then asks if I put a straw in her bag, which I didn't, because we have a cup of straws out on the customer side of the counter, which is right next to where her drink was. This is where all hell breaks loose. I am standing about 3 to 4 feet away when she asks about the straws, so I point to the straws to let her know they are available for her, while I start walking over to make sure she sees where they are. For some reason, this was unacceptable to her, and she starts asking me why I'm so unfriendly to my customers. A co-worker is nearby and hears her, so she walks over to watch what's going on in case I need help. I apologized to the woman and told her I in no way intended to make her feel disrespected, and apologized again if I came across that way. She then tells me that I'm rude for telling her where the straws were instead of walking over, reaching in front of her face, and handing her the straw myself. I apologize and tell her that I did so because she was closer, and I didn't want to make her wait for me to put down my work. She continues to freak out, so I decide it's best to just say, "I'm sorry, ma'am, I understand," in the hope she just leaves. She walks out, and then comes back in a minute later, asking for a new drink since hers sat out, her own fault by the way. My co-worker asked her manager to come stand nearby when she walked back in, so that she could help if anything escalated. I quickly remade the drink and brought it back. She finally left for good. My manager informs me that she complained about me and asked for the manager's name and the number for corporate. All because I didn't physically hand her the straw that was an inch away from her and 3 feet away from me. 2. I just got home from work. This literally happened about an hour ago. I work in a small coffee shop with a big walk-in fridge at the back of the shop. There's a set of tables in front of the fridge, and we have just enough space to open the door fully, without hitting the chairs. Earlier today, an old man came in and had a coffee and sat at said chairs. He came back in about 4 hours later and asked to see the manager. Our manager was gone home, so technically I was the acting manager while he was gone. I walk over to the man and ask if he's okay. He tells me that today one of our staff opened the door of the fridge and hit him with it. And he showed me his arm and said it was all red and swollen. There were no marks at all on his arm, but he was adamant there was. He showed 3 other staff too, and they said they couldn't see anything. He walks down to our fridge and opens it and closes it. The door says staff only, and we could get in serious trouble with him doing that, showing how he got hit. The door was nowhere near where he was sitting, but okay, I apologized to him anyway. The staff member that supposedly hit him had gone home too, so I couldn't ask him. The man said that he apologized and asked if he wanted to speak to the manager, and the man said no. I said to him, since I'm not the actual manager, I have no access to the cameras to check what happened. Our cameras have also been broken for the last few weeks, but nobody but myself and the manager know. But he can come in the morning when our manager is back and speak to him. I took his name and phone number just in case. I filed an accident report too. The conversation was over, and we had arranged for him to come in tomorrow, and he's still standing there staring at me. He says he needs to go buy painkillers now, and continues to stare at me. We were busy at this point, and I really needed to get back to work to serve other customers. Eventually, he says again he needs to get painkillers and finally leaves. Did he expect me to offer to pay for them? So my question is, what the actual fuck am I supposed to do in this situation? I've had no formal training for this, and I was just winging it. 3. Today was pretty busy. Not the busiest night, but a large amount of parties. The restaurant I work at does things California style. I think that is the right term. You order and pay at the counter, and aside from drinks, it's full service from there on out. Woman ordered a dozen wings and did not know that the drums were called drums and the flats were called flats. She kept asking for the legs. The girl at the register and her had a huge miscommunication, and she was given all flats when she asked for all legs, thinking that's what the drums were called. She genuinely did not know the difference in names. Cut to me bringing the pile of flats to her. "All flats," holding the plate of wings.
"That's me."
I set them down and don't even get the chance to get a word out.
"That's not what I ordered. I wanted all legs. This is wrong."
This is where I have to extrapolate that she wanted drums. So I have to explain to this lady the difference between drums and flats. I take them back and have the cook whip me up a batch of drums. I revisit the table several times and all interactions are incredibly pleasant. I assure her a couple of times, all while smiling ear to ear, that her wings will be out shortly. When I finally bring the plate out, this woman looks ravenous. She is happy as a pig in shit. For sure, I thought I wasn't going to get a tip. Pretty standard when someone is so whiny. Well, it turns out she was so pleased with my attitude and how fast her order was corrected, she pulled out a pile of money from her pocket and handed it to me before she left and just said,
"Thank you. Merry Christmas."
Between herself and the party, they left me $40. It's amazing what a positive attitude and some assurances to the customer will do. I was blown away, especially since I was stiffed a couple nights ago on a $200 check because one woman didn't think her salad was big enough. Just a reminder, during this awful, stressful month, it really does make a difference to smile and just roll with it. I hope you all have some customer that makes your day. 4. This happened a few weeks ago, but it still bothers me when I think about it. Just need to preface this by saying I work in a country where waitstaff get paid hourly wages and don't rely on tips, therefore my bank account was not affected by the following events. One night I got flagged down by a man at a table of 2 whilst I was busy putting through an order for another table. One should think that if someone is so desperate they need a waiter to come to their table ASAP that they're ready. They order an entree to share, and the man also orders his main meal. Once it is the lady's turn to order her main, she tells me nothing is jumping out at me from the menu. As soon as she said that, oh boy, I knew I was in for a wild ride. So I recommended some popular dishes, even suggested she get an entree meal as a main. I feel like you can tell so much about a customer within 10 seconds of an interaction, and she was putting out mega picky, high-maintenance vibes. She starts to order an eye fillet, but she's not that enthusiastic about it. Tells me she would like it well done, and that the man chimes in to say she wants it pretty much charcoal. Okie dokie, extra well done it is. As I'm writing it down, she changes her mind and says she doesn't want it anymore. I say, okay, whatever. I'll put the entree through, and maybe you can decide afterwards what you want. All good. They get their entree, and they love it, so maybe there's still hope. She decides she wants a steak, porterhouse, and ribs. Steak, of course, being well done. I remembered from before that she likes her steak extra well done, so I made sure to note that on the order, because I was worried she would send the steak back to the kitchen if it wasn't cooked enough. I don't know if it's just hard, if cooking steak is hit or miss sometimes, or the kitchen just can't do it properly, but a lot of times steaks come out more underdone than they should be. Example, a medium is more like a medium rare. I also don't know if I was in the wrong for putting it as extra well done because they're 2 different cuts, but I also didn't want to seem like a bad waiter to not remember customer preferences. I feel like a very well done eye fillet would have been just as shit. Considering the way she was acting, I feel like she would have been unhappy no matter what she ordered. Why even go out for dinner if you're not even hungry? So they get their mains, and I give them a couple minutes to eat some of it before I go over and ask how the food is. The ribs are just, I don't know. And the steak is so stringy and tough I can't eat it. I wanted so badly to say, well, what the fuck did you expect? It's almost like she wanted it to be terrible so she could complain. I genuinely feel really embarrassed for the man with her, because he seemed to really enjoy his food and she was being very difficult. Of course, I take it back to the kitchen, but she doesn't want anything else. We always offer to remake the food or replace it with a different dish, but we don't give discounts or remove a meal from the bill unless it was a genuine fuck-up on our part. After I offered desserts and coffees, I left them alone because I was honestly sick of her and I couldn't be bothered. Later on in the night I was at the till. A table sitting next to them came up to pay and told us that they overheard the lady saying to the man that she wanted us to compensate them for the travel time to the restaurant. Excuse me? What? The table I was cashing off agreed that the lady was being an unreasonable bitch. I let the GM know and he laughed. The boss wouldn't even consider such a stupid request. I doubt they even tried bringing it up, probably just paid and left quickly because they were gone pretty soon after. After about 6 months of working at a steakhouse, I'm convinced people have no idea how they actually want their steaks done. 5. So this happened about a year or two ago and I still remember it like it was yesterday. I work for a chain restaurant that is sort of whatever you consider the nicer side of sports bars. Lots of televisions but expensive cocktail lists, over 30 beers on tap, and you're lucky to find an entree under $23. That being said, people don't often think we're expensive or nice, just another chain with decent service. At a location about 2 hours away from mine, a long-time staff member had passed away tragically, and they needed to bring in workers from other locations for a few days. I was asked to go on a busy Saturday, and things were very disorganized, but I was happy to help. I couldn't imagine it happening at my location. At first I was told I'd just work lunch. Then I was told I'd work dinner too, but get a free meal. Then I was told I would get a hotel that night and work the next day too. And then they scratched that and said I'd close and drive back that night, after working 11 a.m. to 3 a.m. And the previous night I had worked till 3 a.m. as well, and I was low on steam. So like I said, it was a shit show, but also obviously an extenuating circumstance. We only informed our tables we were out of town if they inquired. The death had been on the news, or if we weren't sure about the answer to a question, we would only say that we weren't used to the location and would go double-check the answer, and how we were there while the original staff was away, and said we weren't sure why if they kept pressing. Most people were sympathetic to any little hiccups that happened, and everything honestly went super smoothly for a restaurant being run by complete strangers. I'd had more issues back at my actual restaurant than on shift at this one, and this one was bigger and busier. It was surprising how well the shift was going. Ha! Jinx. It's around midnight, and I'm sat a millennial couple, probably around 25, that seemed nice when I greeted them. The two ordered cocktails from me. I asked if they were getting crazy and going with doubles, and they both laughed and agreed to my upsell and seemed to like me. I head to the bar immediately. My other tables were eating, so they were my main priority. After a minute, the bartender told me they were out of tequila and were running to the back to get more. I waited another 3 minutes and the bartender came back saying that the managers, also from different locations, didn't know where the key was for the liquor room. I figured I'd bring over the drink that was ready for the girl and 2 waters and apologize to the guy whose drink wasn't ready and get his drink comped. Keep in mind, it has been a total of 5 minutes since I've left the table. Our drink chits print the time when they've been rang in, and I had checked it to see if it had been over a 5-minute wait, as that's the company policy of when a drink would be eligible for comping. I start walking back over to the table and I see they've called over another waitress. I smiled and walked up, and the waitress says, "Oh, this girl is mad because their drinks have been taking over 20 minutes, and you never came back." He looked slightly uncomfortable, and like he didn't agree with what she was saying. I apologized profusely and said I'm so sorry we ran out of tequila for his drink, and I was waiting for the bartender to grab a new bottle from the back. But we do not have access currently because none of us are actually from this location. We did plan on taking care of the drinks for the wait, but it hasn't been quite 20 minutes or I would have ran back to tell you what was going on sooner, and taking your food orders. I'm so sorry again. I didn't realize getting the tequila would be so difficult. We're definitely not used to being here, so sorry again for the mistake. Which 100% my fault for correcting her on how long she thought it had been. I know you should never correct a customer, but I'd been working for so long and in a different city, so it sort of slipped out. My tone wasn't demeaning or anything, and I was literally just trying to make a joke of it because they seemed so nice before, and I didn't realize the severity of her anger. The boyfriend smiled and said it was no problem, and thanked me for letting him know, and took a drink of his water looking completely unbothered. But the way this lady went off was amazing. Neither of us clearly had expected it. She pushed her cocktail and water to the middle of the table in absolute rage. Her boyfriend looked at her like she was crazy, and she looked absolutely pissed at my existence. I immediately apologized again for the inconvenience, and told him I was going to go grab his drink. I could see it had been made from across the room during our chat, and a manager to come talk to them because of the mistake. I'd realized things had gotten way more serious than I thought. My people skills probably not the sharpest as I was overtired. I literally checked the time again when I picked up the drink in case I was crazy, and even after I was talking to the table, the drink had only been rung in for 8 minutes. She made some comment like, "Yeah, you better send a manager over." Yikes. Manager goes over. She tells him I was a huge bitch and they'd been waiting for 20 minutes and yada yada. And I was giving her so much sass and how she hates it here. He apologized and told them he would take care of their drinks, and gave them half off their food and gave them a free appetizer. This hurt because I'd been a server since high school, and at this point I'd never gotten anything but compliments on my service personality. But I sucked it up and kept going. All the other people working had been there since lunch as well, and I couldn't convince anyone to pick up the table for me, even though I was now terrified of this girl. I went back over immediately after the manager to check in on how they are doing with the menu. His was closed and hers wasn't. She snapped that they weren't ready and waved me off. I sort of figured she was so pissed they would probably leave, because she had put her coat on. He looked at me apologetically and I moved on to my other tables. Because I'm trying to not get fired, the manager sided with me. I literally told him he could call my regular GM and he would say I've never gotten a complaint before, and would laugh at the notion of me being sassy. I'm watching them like a hawk for when they might need me from across the room, trying to make them the main priority and do some customer rehab. I usually got transferred other servers' sticky tables because I'm decent at table rehab. They seemed to be arguing and I returned to the floor and he called me back over. The conversation went something like this. "Hi, I'll have the burger with fries, please." "Sounds great, thank you, and for you?" The girl won't make eye contact with me and glares at her boyfriend, her arms crossed, but is speaking to me. "Absolutely nothing. You've ruined my appetite." "Oh, I'm really so sorry again. That's everything for you guys then?" "Honey, just order something. You're not going to sit here and watch me eat." The manager is taking care of it. The girl slams her fist on the table. "I said I don't want to fucking eat anything this stupid fucking girl serves me. Fuck off!" I walked away and was literally shaking and got that stomach pit feeling. I asked the manager if he would consider serving them or something so I wouldn't have to keep getting insulted, and he looked at me like I was asking him to bring me the moon. I sent him with the app just in case the fact that I never touched it made her want to eat that, but to no avail. Anyways, I then serve him his meal pretty quick, asked the kitchen to get it out quick to save me, check on it, and ask if they'd like anything else in that moment. That way if she had changed her mind she could order food. He shook his head dejectedly. I clear his plate when he's done. Ask for dessert or coffee. Ha! Just covering my basics for if they write in a complaint. And then present him with the bill. 3 double cocktails for free, half of his meal free, so like a $12 bill. And I wish them a good night. Through the entirety of him eating, she remained arms crossed, and didn't touch her water or cocktail, to the point where her ice has began melting and spilling over slightly onto the table. He had to reach over and take a sip. They get up to leave, and she flips me the bird as she stalks off, and he must sorry while leaving with her. I mean, he couldn't have been that sorry considering he didn't tip me, but I imagine she would have killed him if he did and she found out, so I was just happy they had left. Anyways, I'd never cried at work before that moment, and that was the worst. Had a good cry in the bathroom. Didn't help that I didn't even have any co-workers I knew to seek support from. I got home at 4:45 a.m. Definitely haven't volunteered to work at another location since. Although a woman at a nearby table tipped me a little extra and apologized for the nasty girl, which was lovely. It was just so wild that someone had lost their life, and I was getting ripped a new one because a drink took too long. I always wondered if she ended up seeing it on the news or something and that's why we never got a formal complaint, or if she realized she had overreacted. I was so surprised when we heard nothing. I had even warned my actual GM, who thought it was a funny story and nothing to worry about. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, number 26. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, two things happened while I was doing this video. I realized that we humans are funny little creatures. Well, already knew that one. But that girl in the last story, I think what's happened there is she's realized she's majorly overreacted and thought to herself, well, I can do one of two things here. I could calm down, order dinner, and have a nice meal with my boyfriend. Or I could double down and act like the biggest poopy head in the world. I'm gonna double down and act like the biggest poopy head in the world. So there's that. And also, there was a story I had for this. It's one of those kind of ones where sometimes you're looking for stories and you find one that's kind of sort of maybe posted in the wrong place. And there was one that was served by a person who was a server. They had worked as a server. But in this particular situation, they were actually working in a cinema. And for those of you who enjoy the the kind of poopy stories, you might like this one. But obviously it doesn't really fit in a server video, so I'm going to try, if I can, put together a video of cinema and theatre stories. And there is a subreddit for them, so I'll start there and see what I can rustle up. I'll try and go for funnier ones. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.